Trevor, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. Really appreciate it. And
Happy to help.
well, I'm going to start doing a few questions here just about some customer service stuff. Can you give me a brief profile of the company that you work at, just in terms of how Inter-Val works?
So Inter-Val is a software platform. So we're a software company, software as a service. So they call that SaaS. A company that provides a data management platform to advisors, so banks, accounting firms, insurance companies. That effectively what we do is we harness cloud accounting data directly from business owners, extract it automatically through APIs, and drop that data off in a clean, analyzed, and packaged format to their advisors, so that their advisors are able to interact with their live, real-time data and provide better service because of that access point. All the while providing a real-time business valuation back to the end business owner, so they're constantly aware of the value of their business along the way.
Okay, gotcha. Well, is there a location for like a main outlet for Inter-Val?
Not really. Because obviously we're operating during a pandemic.
Right.
Our staff is everywhere. So like we have 4 on our development team that live in Toronto. We have 1 on our development team that lives in Manchester, England. And we also have some outsourced contract workers that we use occasionally in the Ukraine, Pakistan, and India as well.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, so it's all over the place. That's
Yeah,
nice.
and right now we're entirely remote. We don't even have an office. We actually did have an office prior to the pandemic, but we have since outgrown that office considerably. We've hired 13 people since May. So even if the pandemic wasn't going on, I don't have an office to put them in. So one day when the world opens back up, we'll have a traditional type outlet and cohabitation and creation space. But until that time comes, all of our sales are done remotely. So all of our interactions with our customers are done in a remote manner, which is typically the case even if there wasn't a pandemic. We might sell in person, but in terms of our actual interactions with our customers, once we've sold into them, many of those are remote. Like our customer success teams would be remote that work alongside our paying customers.
Gotcha. Okay. So for you as a CEO, could you describe the typical customer that basically some of your employees can go through with day to day? Like what could be a typical customer like through?
Yeah, so our customers. So the way our business model works is we actually, the end users of our platform are often the business owners themselves. Our actual customer is their advisors. So our best example I can give you is a bank. So we sell our platform to a bank. So we sell to the channel. They're our channel partner. We sell to them. They then provide our software to all of their business owner clients. So our customers that we're dealing with would be like account managers at banks. There are core users of the software who then deploy it to the other business owners, the individual clients of theirs. So our interactions from a customer relations standpoint are with them, helping them be successful in the deployment of our platform to their end clients. So there's a lot of education that's required. There's a lot of onboarding and training. And that's why you heard me refer to the term customer success. Like we have a customer success team whose entire job is to make sure that our paying customers, so the bank or the accounting firm or whomever we've sold our platform to, is comfortable, feels supported, and feels listened to on ideas where they say, hey, your software does this. Have you considered this? So we're often kind of iterating with our clients. So that's part of the back and forth that we create in our customer relations, is that we know that what we have is great because they wouldn't have bought it in the first place, but we're never going to rest on our laurels. Listening to them, getting feedback from our customers and interacting with them in an empathetic way is really important to us. And so our customer relations are very much centered on that kind of open dialogue approach.
Okay. Yeah, nice. Okay. So I was thinking, so can you describe any like difficult situations that you had with customers, maybe throughout your whole life within the business environment, or maybe other employees that you have that have dealt with situations like that?
Yeah, I can. I've failed or failed more times than I care to count. But there have been a number. I can think back to when I first left university, and my first job was in sales and commercial insurance, and
Mhm.
it's a numbers game, right? And so you're interacting with even existing customers, and making sure that you're properly prepared for all scenarios. And a lot of that is experience driven. Getting yourself into a specific mindset where you're mentally prepared for what might come. And humans are notoriously unpredictable creatures. And
Yeah.
so there will be times where you're ill equipped. So I've always found in my failings, it's that making sure that either draw on experiences that you've got, learn from your failures and make sure you don't do them again, or make sure that you're properly prepared for all eventualities, and kind of acknowledge that there will be times where you just don't have all the answers. And
Right.
one of the best things that you can do, and I've learned over time, is be truthful, be empathetic to what the customer is going through,
Exactly.
and have the courage to say you don't know something. That is probably the most sound advice I can give when it comes to interacting with your customers. Is you might be able to pull one over on them once in a while, but eventually that catches up with you. If you
Yeah.
don't know the answer to something, that is okay. Have the courage to say that and do something about it,
Be
but then
honest.
come back with the right answer.
Exactly. Okay. Gotcha. Um, have you been trained in those types of situations? Like how like someone could tell you how to properly handle those kind of situations. Was there any sort of training?
I went to the school of hard knocks, where generally if you make enough mistakes and you learn from them, that's probably the extent of my training. My training wasn't in the field. I went to university for business and a minor in political science, but none of that really gets you ready for this. It's finding the right mentors, admittedly, learning from people along the way, having your eyes open, question everything. That's the best training you can ever get, and just constantly kind of learning from those experiences, especially the bad ones. The bad ones are the ones you can learn the most from. And I get back to that whole word of empathy. Be empathetic to your customer. Understand that sometimes we spend so much time talking that we miss out on what we really could have heard,
Right.
and what we can learn from listening. Ask questions. It's really one of the things at Inter-Val that we pride ourselves on. Is we have these core kind of we call them our inter values. There are posted values, or I also like puns and I think they're funny,
Right.
but we post them internally, and like our entire organization can see them, and they're really kind of front and center to what we do.
Mhm.
And it's always be listening to your customer. You don't think that you know the answer. The customer knows the answer. They just haven't been asked the right question yet. So as we're iterating and building new features on our software, we don't just bury our head and pretend that we know the answer. We just go and ask. And
Right.
I know if you understand what their pain points are, it's easier for you to bring those solutions to the table. And that's front and center. And that just gets back to being a good listener.
Right. Well, that's a great point. Absolutely. What is your best experience in terms of customer service? Like, how do you feel that you've put in good work to provide them the best service?
That's good. That's a very, very good question. There's a number of, like, I can think back to a number of kind of instances where I felt, basically proud.
Mhm.
But they all have one kind of core element that that's there, and it's about, there's like stages of understanding the problem. And it could be a problem like you've done something wrong, or your product's done something wrong, or back in when I was in commercial insurance where they had a situation where they found out where their policy wasn't properly covering them. Like, regardless, what the manifestation of it is, there's a pain point.
Right.
And then helping them in whatever way, shape, or form that might be. And now in the software, it's we're working with large organizations and better understanding their, what we call their as is state. Where are things not working efficiently now, and how can we provide a solution to that? And so that's a journey, and that's a journey of kind of co-creation where you're bringing a solution to them, but you're not saying, here you go, drop it in. Like, you're not buying this off the shelf.
Right.
It's, I've got this, it will solve this problem for you. Let's now talk about how you can leverage it to the to the nth degree, and to the most in the most ways possible. So for me, those are kind of the manifestations of not one specific story. It's
Mhm.
the same thing that happens over and over again. It's pain, it's a potential alleviation of that pain, and then it's going through it together and implementing where they've kind of been on that journey with you, and you can't help but take an element of pride in that because they see ultimately my pain has been relieved, whatever pain that might be.
Right.
And it's because you're empathetic to the actual pain that you feel good about, like that's what makes you feel good. And generally they feel good about their buy decision, and they feel supported once the buy decision's done. Because the last thing people want is to say, hey, I've written you a check, this is what I'm doing, I'm buying your service, and now they're no longer any good to you. Right? That's not, there's no retention there, customer retention and success. You want to share in that, and you want to have those goals be aligned.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. So the other question that the professor gave me was, what we're flipping the switch, saying, what was your worst experience? Like, if you can think of like one out of all the situations that you went through, is there one that stands out, saying, it's just not, wasn't like the best work. I didn't think that was great or anything.
Yeah, I think back to kind of, earlier in my career, probably more in the insurance world, where
Mhm.
you are either selling or again servicing an existing customer, and believing that you've prepared everything. I think back to specific clients where you'd go in and you do like an annual client review as
Mhm.
part of their program, for their commercial insurance, and you'd be prepared and you'd have gone through all the data ahead of time, and you'd sit down with them and you'd have your booklet of paper and you'd be asking them a series of questions, and you you tend to seek to please, and often sometimes you inadvertently cut corners.
Yeah.
You say you're trying to just get to the end of a we want to make people happy, right?
Yeah.
And you want to have a good experience. I was young, I was nervous, and as opposed to really focusing in on necessarily what the customer needed, and like taking your time explaining things, you're trying to get from point A to point B. And so there are times where like I can remember it where like a client would say like, slow down, I don't understand what you're doing. And that's an existing customer. You're not taking your time. You're trying to, cross your T's and dot your I's, but basically just achieve the task that you were given,
Yeah.
as opposed to taking your time to be, again, empathetic to what they're going through, listening to you. They don't necessarily understand the topic. And so taking your time to explain it, educate them, and ultimately that's the best way to build a really good and strong foundation to a customer relationship. And early on,
Mhm.
I struggled with that, and a lot of people do. But I look back at that, and that's part of the foundation of what helped us build what we're building here, is that you learn from those kinds of errors, and you have different kinds of relationships with your customers now.
Oh wow, yeah, that's very eye-opening for me personally. Just um, the whole ride from the start and all the things that you experience, and that's good things to learn on the way, and it builds right into that success. And that's awesome. Um,
We're all just a product of our own experiences, right?
oh, for sure, absolutely. So looking back on your experience, what was the result after? Sorry, it's basically like the same thing that you just said, like, because it's saying like, after handling the situation, what could have you done differently? But you definitely learn as you went on, definitely early in your career. And I'm definitely going to skip that question. Some of these questions,
Well, and even in that one, if there's something you want to add in there, it's like it's confidence, right? It's
yeah,
if you're confident in if you're confident in why you're doing what you're doing, and constantly remember that at its core, you are there to deliver value to the customer. That value can manifest itself in the form of a product, it can be a service, but at the end of the day, value to the customer is what you're looking to deliver.
right.
And at its core, that's what your interactions with customers, they have to be predicated on that. They need to be deriving value from you. And one of the best ways they can derive value from you is if you take your time and focus in on how they're going to derive value,
Right.
not how am I going to meet my duty. Like it says I need to do this, this, and this. And if all you're focused in is on completing those things, they're not getting any value for that. In which case, your interaction or your customer relation at that point is a
Mhm.
farce.
Yeah, right. Okay. Let me go back to earlier when we talked about like training. Since there's not really that much training, and you said mentors are like a big part of like learning. Do you feel that maybe for newcomers that come into your company, do you think it's right to have training once they come in, like in terms of getting the best info and like making a program to like educate them on good customer service?
Yeah, it's critical. It's absolutely critical, and like we have a pretty robust for. They still call us a startup, even though we're growing pretty dramatically. We still
Right.
fall into the fintech startup world, as they call it.
Yeah.
But effectively, like we have documentation out the yin yang that is designed to be shared for all of our new onboards, especially when we hire remotely. Like we just had one of our a contractor join us from Manchester, England, as I referenced earlier, and it for him it was really critical that he be able to digest a lot of that information. You know, he's a developer, so he doesn't have necessarily direct interactions with customers yet,
Mhm.
but he might one day. And we think that that level of transparency across the organization is critical. Like all of the all of our programming, documentation, our values, what we stand for, who our customers are, the personas of those customers. So for us, we do a lot of really good kind of breaking down of the individual personas of our customers. So we do, we call it persona mapping, where like we actually have gone through an exercise of everything that our customers go through, what they will feel, and why it is we're targeting them, how we're trying to alleviate that pain.
Mhm.
And we share that with everyone, whether they interact with the customers or not. Because if we're everything we're doing, if we remember that it's for that purpose, whether you're a developer or you're a an AP clerk, yeah, what you're doing you might say, well, how is this connected? We built something and we use something called an OKR framework. If you want to look it up after, it's a specific framework where we share those amongst the entire organization. So we set corporate objectives, and
Mhm.
then every department has their own kind of sub objectives. And the KR stands for key results. It's objectives and key results. That's what it stands for. And what they do by department is they're always measuring things that feed up directly to the corporate objectives so they can see. So
Oh,
if you're, we don't have a building, but like if you were our janitor and you worked for us, you would have individual key results that you measure yourself on. And you'll see exactly how that fits into our company culture. You'd say, well, how does that fit? Well, it's really important that we're proud of where we work. And if you're cleaning there and that's here, company culture feeds here, and that feeds up into our corporate OKR. So like every single aspect of what gets done feeds up into that. And so that's part of our training mantra as well, is that everyone needs to know why we do what we do and who we do it for.
wow.
Sorry,
Wow.
that was a really long-winded answer to a simple
No,
question.
but that's awesome. Honestly, like that's very clever and smart for sure.
We stole it from Google, so I hope so.
Oh yeah. Right. Yeah, but that is really clever. That's awesome. Um, so based on your role, and I just want to get more into like your role as a CEO, um, are you empowered to make the customer service decisions? Like, how does your role work in that sort of frame?
Yes, I guess indirectly, like there's no
Mhm.
decision that goes on here that I don't know about. I don't have direct impact on it. I set kind of our strategy and ultimately where it is that we're going, and again, who we're doing it for. The individual decisions around like customer service
Mhm.
is handled more by our customer success team and our sales team. So we have account executives that on our sales team that are designed to basically take care of each account, and then our customer success is the one that makes sure that they're using the software properly, they understand it, if there are any bugs or anything like that, they work with customer success. So all of those people do report into me, but I wouldn't say that I have direct say over what happens in those specific interactions, but I guess in a roundabout way I'm tangentially related to those decisions.
Right. Okay. Gotcha. So last question. Um, so what advice could you give to any, let's say, university and college students that are just getting fresh off the books and want to look for jobs? And if they're interested in you, what advice could you give them in terms of what they're looking for? Like if they're really good into customer service.
Yeah, it's specifically through the customer service lens. The things that the kind of things that we find important, and this is for us, it's in customer service or sales, really, is back to that customer first, and that level of empathy. Like I keep using the word over and over again, and it's only because it's so critical to the way that we operate. If you understand, if you put yourself in the shoes of your customer, think through their operation, think through their infrastructure, think through the way that that they work currently, and be constantly looking at ways to deliver value to that, and thinking that everything that you're doing is with them in mind. That's when we find that the best iteration around, whether it be our product or what have you, when it happens. And then when that happens, you've kind of created this culture that they're always at the core. And so every decision you're making is with improving that. And so your point about kind of customer service, at the end of the day, that's what customer service is. It can be technical. It can be our customer success team making sure that they're deriving the most value possible from our product, or customer service can be, you know, it can be a waiter at a restaurant, right? Like,
Mm.
as long as you are constantly empathetic to your customer, and in their case, the people eating at the restaurant would be their customer. As long as you're empathetic around their experience and how they can get the most from that experience, and that's always at top of mind in the way that you deliver your service or your value.
Mm.
Um, those are the core. Like, at its core, it doesn't matter whether you're working for a fintech startup or you're, again, serving them at a restaurant. The same principles for me ring true.
Oh, all right. That's good.